Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into something a little different this time.
Different good, I
Oh,
hope.
definitely good. We're exploring Richard Bandler's The Adventures of Anybody.
Ah, Bandler. Always an adventure with him, right?
Absolutely. We've got excerpts from his 1993 book, and let me tell you, well, it's not your typical NLP book.
No, no, not at all. It's more like a fable, a story designed to make you think, really think about yourself and the world.
Exactly. It's got this playful energy.
Right.
But it's also packed with deep insights into human behavior and the nature of reality, and he uses the framework of a story to do it.
It's brilliant, actually, because it allows him to sneak these profound ideas in under the radar. You're enjoying a story, and bam, suddenly you're questioning everything you thought you knew.
Right. And the story starts with a young prince who seemingly has it all: wealth, power, luxury, but he's bored out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
He craves something new, something beyond his predictable palace life.
That craving for newness, that's something we can all relate to, don't you think? It's that human desire to grow, to experience, to break free from the mundane.
Totally. But in the prince's case, this desire throws the whole court into a frenzy. They're so attached to tradition and order, they're terrified of change.
It's like they're representing that part of us that clings to the familiar, even when it's no longer serving us. That fear of the unknown, the resistance to stepping outside our comfort zones.
Yeah, and the court scholar even warns the king that allowing the prince to explore new things will lead to chaos. It really makes you think about how often we resist change, even when it might be good for us.
Absolutely. It's like they're stuck in a limited meta model, and the prince's desire for newness threatens to shatter it. Which is, of course, exactly what Bandler wants us to do: break free from those limiting models that hold us back.
And to deal with this desire for newness, the king calls in a sorcerer.
Not your typical solution, right?
Not at all. And this sorcerer is a bit unconventional, too. He arrives in royal purple robes, no black ones with stars, and a pointed hat for this guy. And instead of offering some magical cure, he declares that the prince's problem isn't physical at all.
Oh, what is it then?
It's all part of a dream, he says.
A dream. Now that's a reframing.
A big one.
Hmm.
It immediately shifts our perspective, doesn't it? And it reminds me of how Bandler always emphasizes the power of language to shape our reality.
Absolutely. The words we use, the stories we tell ourselves, they create our experience.
And the sorcerer takes it even further, saying there is no prince. Everything, he insists, is just a dream someone is having. Talk about blowing your mind.
Whoa. Okay, now that's a bit of a head spinner. So where does the story go from there?
Well, the prince, stripped of his identity and even his name, finds himself wandering through this strange place.
A strange place. What's it like?
Well, he stumbles upon a peculiar little man named Blink, who, get this, grows larger and younger as he approaches.
What? That's bizarre.
It is. It's a vivid image, and so unexpected. It immediately makes you wonder about perception, how reality can shift depending on our viewpoint.
Classic Bandler. Always playing with our perceptions, pushing us to see things from different angles.
Right. And of course, with the prince having lost his memory, he doesn't even know his own name.
Wow, complete amnesia. That's rough.
It is. He can't even tell Blink who he is or where he's going. So they decide to go to the police, hoping for some answers.
Good idea, but I bet that doesn't go smoothly.
It does not. It
Yeah.
turns into a completely absurd situation because the prince can't provide any information for the report. No name, no address, nothing.
Oh, I can imagine the frustration.
Exactly. The poor police sergeant is at his wit's end. And it's the district judge, completely exasperated, who finally gives him the name Anybody.
Anybody, why that name?
Well, the judge says something like, "So now you have a name for your silly forms."
Ah, that's perfect. So the prince becomes anybody, emphasizing the universality of his journey.
It's like he's become an everyman figure, so one we can all see ourselves in. It's a reminder that these NLP principles aren't just for some elite group of people, they apply to everybody.
I like that. Anybody. We're all anybody on this journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. So now we have anybody searching for his true self with Blink by his side. But their adventure doesn't end there. Their quest takes them through a forest filled with scholars, each obsessed with knowledge and the pursuit of meaning.
Interesting. What do these scholars represent, do you think?
I think it's Bandler's way of exploring the allure, but also the potential pitfalls of intellectual understanding. They're so focused on analyzing everything that they miss the experience of simply being.
Oh, I see. They're all about the why and not the how, so to speak.
Exactly. It reminds me of how Bandler emphasizes the importance of taking action in NLP. It's not enough to just understand the concepts, you have to apply them in your life.
Totally agree. Knowledge without action is like a map without a destination.
And speaking of maps and destinations, anybody gets into this whole debate with one of the scholars about the meaning of time. And guess what happens next?
Oh, I have a feeling I know where this is going. Time itself shows up, right?
You got it.
Hmm.
While sleeping in the forest, anybody hears these distant bells, and then he meets Time, who whisks him away on another leg of this incredible journey.
This is where things start to get really interesting. What's this encounter with time like?
Well, it's not what you'd expect. It's like Bandler is saying that time isn't just this linear thing. It's also subjective. It can be stretched and compressed, and our experience of it changes depending on our internal state.
Fascinating. So time is a concept that we can influence.
It seems that way. And this journey with time takes anybody up this massive mountain, emphasizing the themes of change and personal growth. It's like a climb towards deeper understanding.
A symbolic ascent. Love it. So what's at the top of the mountain? Some grand castle.
Nope. No castle. Just a beautiful garden where time treats anybody to a feast.
A feast. Time throws feasts now. This is getting weirder and weirder.
It is. But it's also incredibly compelling. It challenges our preconceived notions, and it reinforces this idea that time is not this rigid external force. It's something we can influence, shape, even enjoy.
So anybody is starting to see the world in a whole new way.
He is.
Yeah.
But he's still full of questions, wondering who he is, what his purpose is. But as we know, the real journey is in the seeking, right?
Absolutely. And we're just at the beginning of anybody's adventure. So anybody's enjoying this feast in this magical garden.
He is. And that's where he meets the lady who lives there. She's not just some random character, though.
No, she seems to hold a much deeper significance, like an archetype almost.
Exactly. She's described as both fierce and gentle, more beautiful than anybody has ever seen. And she has this captivating presence that just leaves him in awe.
It's almost like she embodies this feminine power, both nurturing and commanding at the same time.
Right. And she's very mysterious. She doesn't reveal much about herself. And when anybody asks her name, she refuses to tell him. She claims it holds great power.
Interesting. Earlier, the prince lost his name, lost his identity completely, and now this lady, she's choosing to keep hers secret.
I know. It's like Bandler is playing with this idea of the power of names, the connection between language and identity.
It makes you think about, what makes up our identity. Is it our name? Is it our experiences? Or is it something deeper?
Exactly. And this idyllic little interlude, it doesn't last forever. Time returns, and guess who shows up with him?
Let me guess. The sorcerer.
You got it. And his reappearance. It's like another one of those Bandlerian pattern interrupts, shaking things up, forcing anybody to shift his perspective once again.
I love how Bandler does that, keeps you on your toes.
I know. Anybody begs for mercy, but the sorcerer says there's no time for that.
Uh-oh, sounds serious. What's going on?
Things are about to get real, my friend. The sorcerer reveals that anybody is needed to fight a powerful adversary.
An adversary.
This master of the unknown. And get this, he's a threat to the balance of multiple worlds.
Multiple worlds. Plural. So we're not just dealing with a personal quest anymore.
Nope, the stakes have just been raised.
Wow. This is getting epic. So what does this master of the unknown represent, do you think?
I think it's a symbol of those aspects of ourselves that we fear or avoid. Those parts of our psyche that we haven't fully explored or integrated.
Yeah.
The shadow self, maybe.
That makes sense, especially in the context of NLP, where we're always encouraged to explore our own inner landscapes, to expand our awareness.
Right. And the sorcerer reveals that anybody is chosen for this task because of his ignorance.
His ignorance, how does that make him qualified?
It's like he's a blank slate, a weapon against the master of the unknown. He's been shielded from the master's powers precisely because he doesn't know about them.
That's such a Bandlerian twist. It's like he's saying that sometimes the things we think we know can actually prevent us from seeing new possibilities.
Exactly. And he's understandably terrified. He resists this mission at first.
I bet. Who wouldn't be?
Right. But the lady and the sorcerer, they reassure him that he's the only one who can do this.
They see his potential, even if he doubts himself.
They do. And so, armed with new skills and knowledge, he sets off with time as his guide.
So where do they go?
His journey takes him across this vast plain into a strange forest. He encounters all sorts of guardians and challenges along the way.
I bet. What kind of challenges?
Well, there's this old man who suddenly transforms into a warrior and tests anybody with a riddle.
Classic archetype, right? The wise old man, the gatekeeper, testing the hero's knowledge, his resolve.
Exactly. And time, he can only go so far with anybody. He can't travel beyond this forest. So it's another separation, you know. Anybody has to face this master of the unknown alone.
Intense.
It is. And the territory he's entering is full of uncertainty and danger, talking animals, strange creatures. He even comes across this city where doors lead to unexpected places, time bends, and reality shifts constantly.
Sounds like a literal representation of the unconscious mind, doesn't it?
It totally does. It's like Bandler is saying that in order to confront the master of the unknown, we have to be willing to let go of our rigid perceptions of reality.
We have to embrace the fluidity of experience, be comfortable with not knowing, with being surprised.
Exactly. And in this strange city, anybody even gets trapped inside a book after exploring a library filled with these enormous volumes.
Trapped inside a book? Wow, what happens there?
It's a wild episode. It really highlights the power of stories, but also how knowledge can both liberate and imprison us. You know?
We can get so caught up in the world of ideas that we forget to live in the real world.
Right. And eventually, anybody reaches this city called Ish. This is where the master of the unknown resides. And guess what? It's a city of complete silence.
A city of silence. That's both eerie and intriguing. What does the silence represent, do you think?
Well, silence can be a powerful force, can't it? It can be unsettling, but it can also be incredibly clarifying. It strips away all the external noise and distractions, forcing us to turn inward and listen to our own inner voice.
It's like a metaphor for the state of mind we need to cultivate in order to access our deeper wisdom. We have to quiet the chatter of our thoughts and be present in the moment.
Yes. And while camped outside the city, anybody has this vivid dream where he sees this beautiful princess riding a white horse. He tries to intervene in the dream, and these two men grab the princess. And when anybody protests, the men burst into flame.
Whoa! That's intense. What do you make of that?
I think it foreshadows his encounter with the princess, but it also suggests his emerging sense of protectiveness, his willingness to fight for what he believes in.
The flames could represent his own inner fire, his passion and determination.
Exactly. And after the dream, he finally enters the city and is taken to this guest house. And there he meets the princess from his dream, and he's just mesmerized by her beauty, the sound of her voice.
It's like he's found a beacon of hope in this strange and silent city.
I know. And their meeting is interrupted by the arrival of the master of the unknown, who towers over anybody and demands to know his identity.
This is it. The moment of truth.
It is. And anybody's response is brilliant. He just says, nobody. I mean, anybody. Oh my.
It perfectly captures his confusion, his vulnerability, but also his resilience.
He's come a long way since he lost his identity, and he's still standing.
He's not letting the master intimidate him. He's staying true to himself.
He is. And then something totally unexpected happens. The master reveals that anybody saved his niece from kidnappers and offers him any reward he desires.
Wait, what? That's a twist. So the master's actually grateful to anybody.
It seems that way. It's like Bandler is reminding us that things are not always as they seem.
And our perceptions can deceive us.
Exactly. So now, anybody's in a position of power, but he's not sure what to do. He's so overwhelmed, all he can think to ask for is a meal with the princess.
Ah, that's sweet. He's not letting the power go to his head.
He's not. And the master, amused by this, agrees to the meal. But then he throws in a more tempting offer. Eternal life and power in exchange for anybody's loyalty.
Oh, wow. Now that's a tough choice.
It is. It's a classic test, you know, appealing to his ego, tempting him with power and immortality.
So what does anybody do?
He plays for time. He spends 3 weeks in the master's city, enjoying the princess's company, learning about the master's life.
Smart move. He's gathering information, assessing the situation.
He is. And during this time, the princess reveals a secret. Her uncle, the master of the unknown, keeps a diary that records his entire life.
A diary. Could this be what the sorcerer needs?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
And he realizes he has to get this diary. And he decides to escape the city with the princess.
Whoa, now that's a risky plan.
It is. He's taking a huge gamble. But as we all know, the master of the unknown, he's not going to let his secret slip away easily.
So anybody's got his work cut out for him. Escaping a city of silence with the princess and a powerful master's diary, that's quite a challenge.
It really is. And this city Ish. It's not just a physical location, is it? It's more like a metaphor for the unknown itself.
Exactly. Full of unexpected twists and turns, always keeping you on your toes. And remember how we were talking about Bandler's use of symbolism? Well, it's on full display here.
Give me an example.
Well, there's the scene where anybody gets lost in a building, right?
Right, this weird building.
And it's like this building, it's a representation of his own mind with all its complexities.
Like a maze, almost.
Yeah. And there are these like multiple versions of himself appearing and disappearing.
Whoa, that's trippy.
It is. And I think it's showing how fragmented he feels, how uncertain he is about his own identity.
It's like he's trying to put all the pieces of himself together, but it's not easy.
Exactly. And then he encounters these two wizards.
Oh, yeah, the wizards.
And they bombard him with sensory overload, like sights and sounds and feelings all at once.
It's overwhelming him.
Totally. It's like they represent those conflicting forces in our lives, you know? Time and change, pulling us in different directions.
It's a lot to handle.
It is. But through all of this, he's searching for that diary.
The key to everything.
Exactly. And eventually, he finds it.
Ooh. That was a close one.
It was. But getting out of the city with the diary and the princess, that's a whole other challenge.
I can imagine. Remember, the master, he's incredibly powerful. He knows everything that's going on in his city.
Yeah. Anybody manages to get to the city walls, but he runs straight into an army of the master's soldiers. Talk about a nail-biter.
It's the classic hero's journey, right? The underdog facing impossible odds.
Exactly. But anybody, he's resourceful, he's resilient, he's learned to tap into his own strength, you know?
And then the master himself appears.
Oh, no.
He's furious, demanding the return of his diary.
The showdown. This is what it's all been building to, right?
It is. And just when it seems like all hope is lost, anybody does something incredibly clever.
Mm-hmm.
He challenges the master to a contest.
A contest. What kind of contest?
A contest of knowledge. And he asks the master for one simple thing.
What's that?
His name.
His name. That's all.
Yep. And it's brilliant. Remember how we talked about the power of names in this story? Well, it turns out that's the one thing the master has overlooked.
In all his knowledge and power, he's forgotten the importance of his own name.
Exactly. And he reveals his name.
What is it?
Ralphie.
Ralphie. Seriously.
I know. It's so unexpected, so ordinary. And that's the point. It completely breaks the master's power. He's reduced to just a regular guy.
He's lost his mystique.
Exactly. And he uses his newfound authority to free the slaves in the city, disband the armies, and distribute the master's wealth.
A true hero.
He even marries the princess. It's a happy ending.
Wait, but I thought you said there was a twist.
Oh, right. Just as they're settling into their new life, this messenger arrives, pleading for help. The king's son in a distant land is ill, and only anybody can save him.
So he sets off on another journey.
He does. But when he arrives, he realizes that the prince doesn't exist.
He's the mirror of his own situation at the beginning.
Exactly. And the sorcerer, he appears again and reminds anybody that this whole adventure has been a fable, a story crafted to make us think.
To challenge our perceptions of reality.
Exactly. The book ends with these words. This is just a fable. And a fable is just one way to let your imagination run away with you now.
It leaves us with a sense of wonder, doesn't it? Like, what's real? What's imagined? It's all up to us to decide.
And that's the beauty of it, right? It reminds us that we have the power to create our own realities, to write our own stories.
It's an invitation to embrace the power of our imaginations, to see the world through a lens of curiosity and possibility.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the adventures of anybody, what are your final takeaways?
For me, it's a reminder that NLP isn't just about techniques and models. It's about exploring the depths of human experience, understanding the power of our minds to shape our realities. And it's about embracing the adventure.
Beautifully said. And I hope our listeners feel inspired to go on their own adventures, to discover the magic that's waiting for them when they step outside their comfort zones.
Me too.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.